since Alderman Johnson has to be downstairs, to open up Buck Meadow only for her testimony so she can.
She's not talking on Conan too.
Good question. I get more people to be here, but I guess, you know, people verify their correspondence. So. Are we ready? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the August 25th meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. My name is Jay Mankara. I am ZBA Chair. To my right is ZBA Vice Chair Josh Neely. And then across the stage, we have member J.P. Boucher, member Steve Lionel, and member Joe Patry. And then to my left is Planning Manager Sam Durfee. So I'm going to just start off with one announcement and then a couple of items of business. So first of all, case number 4, that's the case of Air Road LLC at 3 Air Road. That is going to be continued at their request to the next meeting, which is September 9th. Oh, no, 22nd, I'm sorry. That is going to be continued until the meeting of September 22nd. So if you're here for that case, it's not going to be heard tonight. We have also had a request to push the first case, which is Salt Creek Properties, that's 34 Buck Meadow, to a little later in the agenda because the attorney is not available. So it is going to be heard tonight. It's just going to be pushed out a little bit. So I'm just going to start off with kind of the procedures of the board, and then we're going to take one item out of order. But just in general, this evening we have applications for both variances and for special exceptions. A variance is a request to deviate from the terms of the ordinance. And in order to grant a variance, the zoning board has to find that 5 criteria are met. We have to find that granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. We have to find that the spirit of the ordinance would be observed, that granting the variance would do substantial justice, that there would be no diminution of surrounding property values, and that owing to a special condition of the property, denying the variance would result in an unnecessary hardship. A special exception is a use that's allowed under the zoning ordinance if certain criteria are met. And at least one of our cases, we're going to be addressing both of those issues. So just in terms of the procedures of the board, I will read each case into the record. Applicants will then be invited to come up to the podium. Each applicant will be asked to state his or her name and address. And you have up to 15 minutes to address the board. You don't have to use your 15 minutes, but you do have 15 minutes available. Next, I'll ask if there's anybody in the audience who has any questions, who wishes to speak in favor of the application. Each person would once again be invited to come up to the podium and has up to 5 minutes to address the board. Then I'll ask if there's anybody with any questions, concerns, or opposition to the application. And again, each person would be invited to come up to the microphone and has up to 5 minutes to address the board. Then we'll provide an opportunity for the applicant to come back up to the mic and respond to any questions or address any of the comments that were made. And then finally, if necessary, we'll provide an opportunity for one person who spoke with questions, concerns, or opposition will have the opportunity to come up and have the last word, essentially. That's kind of the order of business. So as I noted, the first case for 34 Buck Meadow, we are going to push a little further down on the agenda, but we do have Alderman Johnson present, who does have to be down at the Board of Aldermen's meeting. So we'd like to, if there's no objection from the board, provide Alderman Johnson with the opportunity to address the board. Ms. Johnson, if you would.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate you accommodating me. This board is great for accommodating elected officials. I just want to say I've gotten many emails in opposition for this proposed project at, what is it, 34 Buck Meadow. I always get the numbers wrong. The reason why it's pure conservation land. It surrounds, it's all like a body of water. If you've been out there, it's like the last of the frontier in Nashua. It's pure conservation land. The species that are out there, the beautiful birds, and I walked it one night in the rain when it first was coming to the board, and I was just completely in awe over the beauty of it. So the question of the hour is, does this meet any of the criterias? And I feel that it will be out of character with the neighborhood here because there is nothing else surrounding it. It's all wetlands. And the fact that when you look at it, you're going to be putting storage units there. Yes, you have something there that was kind of grandfathered in, but now it started like 7 buildings, 3 stories, then it went to 5. Now I believe it's at 4. And it seems to me that they're going to keep dropping it as long as they can fit whatever they want in there. But the question becomes, it's out of character with the neighborhood because there's nothing else there except for wetlands. And I think we would be doing complete injustice to the southwest quadrant of this city if we allowed this project to go through, because we want to keep what's left of the beauty of the city. And like I said, I know you've gotten emails again from many of my constituents against the facility, that they feel that it should not be there, that there's facilities on Spitbrook Road, there's also one on West Hollis Street where the old health club used to be by Ledgewood Hills. Do we really need another one when you're going to be taking this land and they're going to push it as close as they can to the wetlands? And I came before this board over Teak Drive, and you came back and you modified everything, that the road can't be there. And I keep walking Teak Drive to make sure the city is doing what they're supposed to be doing. But this is so totally different with this body of wetlands that I truly believe if they start going in there and they start putting buildings up, it's going to destroy the wetlands, it's going to destroy the habitat, and that's not what we want to do. We talk about in this city sustainability for energy. Why aren't we talking about land, keeping it the way it's supposed to be and keep the wetlands intact? So I hope that you will, anybody else who speaks tonight, you'll take all our comments seriously and all the emails that came through from many of my constituents that really would like to leave this piece of land the way it is, the way Mother Nature wants it to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman Johnson. And for Attorney Perlman's benefit, we intended to delay the case until later for 34 Buck Meadow, which we did, but we did allow Alderman Johnson the opportunity to speak because she does have to go down to the Alderman's meeting. But now you're here. All right, would you still want to be pushed further down the agenda, or are you ready to go?
Ready to go.
Okay.
Do you want to
JP.
roll?
Sorry. I failed to take roll call. Jay Mankara, present. Mr. Ely?
Present.
Mr. Boucher?
Present.
Mr. Lionel?
Present.
Mr. Patriot?
Present.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, so with that, I'm going to read the first case into the record. This is the application of Salt Creek Properties, LLC, and Cutter Place Properties, LLC, Mac Realty, LLC, CO Andrew Ciradelli, applicant. 34 Buck Meadow Road, requesting the following. 1, a use variance from Land Use Code Section 190-15, Table 15-1, number 193, to allow a self-storage facility. And 2, a special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-115 to work in a 40-foot wetland to permanently impact 1,124 square feet of wetland and 45,889 square feet of wetland buffer to construct a 39,700 square foot self-storage facility consisting of 6 buildings along with associated site improvements. This is in the R40 zone in Ward 5, although I do believe the application may have changed since this was stated. And Attorney Perlman, I assume you are here for the applicants.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. My apologies for forgetting my file. Mr. Chairman, I have a handout for the board with some cleanup matters I'd like to walk the board through before I get into my presentation. I am here for the applicants, Mac Milford Realty Limited Liability, and the owner, Salt Creek Properties and Cutter Place Properties Limited Liability Companies. Chad Brandon is here with me, the project engineer. 6. I'll walk you through what I have there. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, we have 2 applications tonight. I will be mindful of our 15-minute time. You may find me going over a little bit. I'll try to move this along. Mr. Chairman, let me just touch on what I just handed out to the board. The 8.5, 11 by 17 plan is the same plan that is before you and made its way through the Conservation Commission. It's just cleaned up for your benefit because the prior plans had a lot going on, and so Chad Brandon and Fieldstone cleaned up the plan, and Chad will speak to that when we get to the special exception. Next up, I have the wetland criteria from 190-115B. The reason I'm giving this to you tonight is because this was in the Conservation Commission packet. It was presented to the Conservation Commission. It was not in your packet, unfortunately, but I wanted you to have it tonight so it's, you have it as part of the record. Next up is the DES, what used to be the New Hampshire Heritage Bureau, where they would tell us if there are any endangered or threatened species or flora or fauna. They have since turned into the DES Ecological Review section, and I wanted you to have this because you can see the first line that I underlined. With the proposed development of the site, we have no expected impact on potential species or any adverse impact to the habitat. Next up is a rendering of the site from Buck Meadow. This was in your packet, but the packet that you received was a picture and then a scan and then emailed to you, so the quality wasn't that great. So I hope this is a little bit better. You can see what we're proposing. Next up in the packet is the GIS, which I thought was important for you folks to see our neighbors in this area. You can see that we are, with one exception, we're surrounded by city property. We have city to the north of us, city-owned property to the west of us across Buck Meadow, city property immediately south of us, city property with the McCarthy School, and then the Gagnon family owns lots of properties around us, and then the Landry family further down Buck Meadow, but I want you to see the context of where we're proposing this self-storage facility. And then finally, what I have is the TIR report that mirrors the Vanessa traffic memo that you folks received as part of your packet. And essentially, they both the TIR worksheet and the Vanessa traffic memo say we're going to have nominal, no impact on traffic, which makes sense because if you're familiar with self-storage facilities, they're not used that often. They're very light traffic. So that's my handout and some housekeeping matters, so you have a full and complete record. The other piece at the outset I want you to know, and I want folks in the audience to know, is that the notice of the hearing is very different from what is being heard tonight. The notice of the hearing was submitted when the original application came in, when there was a lot more buffer impact and some actual wetland impact. That has greatly been reduced. And so while the hearing notice has, I don't have the numbers, I do have the numbers right in front of me. The hearing notice has us with a 39,000 square foot building. We're actually proposing a 27,000 square feet made up of 4 buildings. The earlier plans had up to 6 buildings of 39,000 square feet. As a result of the reduced footprint, our temporary buffer impacts and our permanent buffer impacts dramatically reduced down to from 45,000 square feet of temporary buffer impact down to 2,900 feet, and likewise, permanent buffer impact has been reduced by about 100 square feet from 1124 down to 1,001. So I just want folks to know that the notice that they received as a butter is the notice that's been online is a lot more than what is actually being proposed tonight. So, Mr. Chairman, let me just kind of get into an overview, and then I'm going to turn it over to Chad Brandon to speak to the special exception, and then I'll come back to the variance application. We are in the R40 district, 30-foot Buck Meadow. We're working with a 5-acre site. It has some uplands and wetlands on the property. Currently, there is a 19,500 square foot warehouse on the property. Did you have a question? Yeah. Okay. There's currently a 19,500 square foot warehouse on the property. The warehouse dates back to the early 60s. It was a hen house. In 1980, a variance was granted such that the hen house was converted to the warehouse that's there today. The warehouse is made up of 12 units with mostly contractors coming and going. A lot of debris outside, a lot of junk tires, old cars, sheds outside the existing warehouse, which are all going to be cleaned up with our proposal. So we have a 19,500 square foot warehouse out there today. We are proposing 4 buildings for a total of 20,525 square feet of self-storage warehouse buildings. The self-storage operation is really minimal once the units are up. There's no employee on site, there's no bathroom on site. Downcast lighting will be on the facility. Access will be by means of a security gate, a security gate code that you need to get both into the site and out of the site. And then people have access to their storage facilities. The proposed storage facility, just years ago, these were these god-awful blues and oranges. The developers have learned it's proposed to be tan and green to blend in with the vegetation with the neighborhood. The packet that you received had a couple things that I mentioned, the Vanessa and Associates traffic memo, which states that at peak hours, we're going to have maybe 1 car every 20 minutes that will be barely, if noticeable, to folks driving on Buck Meadow. In your packet, there was a Keller Williams letter as to valuations. Randy Trammell wrote this letter. Randy Trammell's been a realtor here in Nashua.
We don't have that letter.
You don't?
Do not.
Okay, I have, you don't have that letter? Okay. I have a copy of it. I will get it for you. I think I have one, so you can pass it, but you can imagine what it says. Finally, you have the Conservation Commission favorable recommendation. The Conservation Commission initially gave a negative recommendation with the reduction of the site and the restoration plan that Fieldstone and Chad and his team put together. Conservation Commission turned toward a 4-to-1 favorable recommendation. They had 4 conditions of approval, which we agree with. We are acceptable to those conditions of approval. So, Mr. Chairman, let me get that Keller Williams letter. Let me turn it over to Chad to speak to the special exception, and I'll come back.
Could I also ask, you gave us several numbers about changes in square footage. Did you have anything in writing that could help us?
Yeah, it's on the plan, and Chad will walk you through those details, because there's a net restoration, a net positive of buffer impact of 8,800 square feet roughly, right? So let me have Chad walk you through that. I'll get that letter. I'll come back to the special exception. Any other questions for me at the moment?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm Mr. Neely.
Attorney Perlman, it looks like there's a difference on the traffic impact report with a number of projected trips versus what's in the packet. So I think what you just gave us with this traffic impact report is 44 a day, but the packet had 99. For a total of 659 a week.
Mr. Neely, let me come back to you on that.
All right, thank you.
I don't have that traffic, the Vaness report in front of me at the moment, but I will in a sec. So let me answer that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Chad Brannon. I'm civil engineer and principal owner with Fieldstone Land Consultants. I just want to touch on the plan in a little bit more detail and hopefully clarify, some of the questions that the board has asked. When we initially started with this project, we were proposing a significantly larger layout for the site, and we, at the time, were proposing a permanent buffer impacts of 9,961 square feet and a temporary wetland buffer impact of 17,040 square feet. And ultimately, we obtained an unfavorable review from the Conservation Commission. We did a site walk with the Conservation Commission, and we have had an opportunity to modify the plan quite significantly. But what I want to touch on is the existing conditions of the site. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding with this project relative to what's out there now and what we're actually proposing today. So I just want to clarify that. So currently, the project includes 26,987 square feet of existing wetland buffer impacts that are associated with the warehousing building that's on site. And so those impacts exist today. It's the building, it's the gravel access around it, there's some stockpile areas, there's tires that are stored out there. Those are in the photos within the Conservation Commission package that Mr. Perlman shared earlier. The site also has zero stormwater management currently. So everything that's out there currently, all the gravel areas, the building, everything drains directly into the jurisdictional wetland areas. That's important because what we're presenting tonight to the zoning board is essentially a restoration project. And what I mean by that is we're reducing the overall permanent buffer impacts associated with this site. So, and this was a big factor in obtaining a favorable review with the Conservation Commission, because if we can stand before you and say, at the conclusion of this project, there's going to be more wetland buffer areas restored, there's going to be less of an impact on the resource area, and by the way, we've accounted for stormwater mitigation, which means inside that reduction, we are proposing stormwater management. So it's qualitative and quantitative treatment. So we're improving the runoff from a developed site to the jurisdictional wetland area. Those are the details that we shared with this proposal that ultimately yielded a favorable review from the Conservation Commission. Now, with that said, the Commission had some conditions that they wanted to address because they had some concerns with, as you can imagine, our proposal and our footprint doesn't match the exact geometry of what's out there today. So there is some tree cutting associated with this redevelopment, if you will. And what we agreed to with the Commission is we would do a 1-to-1 planting ratio where we would plant trees that we are cutting with new trees. Essentially making sure that there's no loss in vegetation. Certainly maturity is going to change, but we're going to have a restoration plan. We agreed to create that plan and have it reviewed and approved by them with the certainly that would be completed if we were, successful this evening in the special exception. So when you look at the plan that's before you, the colored plan, you'll see there's a lot of hatching and kind of different colors represented on that plan. What you're looking at there is the kind of the red hatches, the proposed buildings, and I just want to clarify the total square footage of the proposed buildings is 27,525 square feet. That's detailed right on the plan. It hasn't changed. That's the same square footage that we presented at the Conservation Commission. The only change to this plan from the presentation and the Conservation Commission is we hatched the pavement and we hatched the buildings. We've made no other changes to this plan. So I don't want anybody to think that we have modified any numbers or made any changes, of substance. When you take a look at this plan, it details, 4 primary areas. It's proposed new temporary buffer impact area. And what that means is it's an area that we're proposing to impact in the buffer, but it's going to be restored as vegetation. It'll be part of that restoration plan. And a lot of those areas are associated with us capturing all of the improvements on this property. So in order to capture all the improvements and route the stormwater to a management area, we have to propose closed drainage. So there's going to be some curbing. It's going to have a raised panel, and then there's grading on the back side of the curbing. That additional grading, because the site is essentially flat, results in some minimal proposed temporary buffer impacts. So the new temporary wetland buffer impacts are about 2,900 square feet. The orange area represents proposed new permanent wetland buffer impacts, and that's really just as you enter the site, it would be on the right-hand side. You'll see that orange hatch. That's about 1,000 square feet. And again, that's associated with, adjusting the layout and, creating a site that addresses emergency vehicle access, stormwater management, et cetera. The green area represents the existing wetland buffer disturbances. And that's this 17,489 square feet, represented on this plan. So that's the existing buffer impacts. The blue represents the areas that we're restoring. So those are the areas that would be, the disturbance that's currently there would be removed, and we'd be revegetating those areas. And the net result is a positive restoration. And as Attorney Perlman stated, that number is a positive restoration of 8,809 square feet. So at the end of the day, we are reducing the impacts into that wetland buffer area, and on top of reducing the impacts, we are treating the stormwater. All of the impervious area, every square foot of the impervious area will be routed, captured and routed to the stormwater management area where it will be treated for qualitative and quantitative runoff treatment. And, that would obviously go through, appropriate reviews if we're successful this evening. So that's an overview of the plan. I wanted to touch on that. That kind of touches on the high-level special exception plan details, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions that the board may have relative to that.
Questions from the board? I have one. So in the application as it was previously submitted, there was 1,124 impacts to the wetlands proper, not just buffer.
Yep.
Are there no longer any impacts to the wetlands proposed?
Correct. We have removed those impacts, so there is no wetland impacts proposed with this project.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Neely?
But, just to follow up on that, so I'm looking at the map, and you just said the green, which is, I'm gonna call that building number 3, top right-hand corner. It looks like that's wetlands now. Am I reading that wrong?
That is not wetlands now. That is the existing area of the wetland buffer that's currently impacted.
Okay, so we had a lot of numbers here. I just want to circle around one more time to make sure we all understand, because there was a positives of 8809, 1,000 feet here or there. So no wetlands are being, 0 wetlands are being affected. Not wetland buffer, but zero wetlands, right?
0 wetlands are
Okay.
being impacted.
And the wetland buffer, this whole 45,889 is completely gone, and it's actually 8809 to the positive.
Correct.
That's a 50,000 square foot swing. That's pretty big.
Well, it's an 8,000 square foot, 8,809 square foot improvement. So there's existing impacts out there right now. We're reducing those existing impacts by 8,809 square feet. It's a lot of numbers. Overall, the project will be a reduction in buffer impacts.
So,
By that.
so one last follow-up. So just to keep following the numbers here. So in reality, 26,000 out there are already today affected.
Mhm.
You guys are taking 8,000 of the 8,800 of that back,
Correct.
right? And so in reality, this whole project would have, 17,000 square foot.
That's correct.
That's right? Okay. All right, thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions? You're good for now.
I am if you are, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, again, Andy Perlman for the record. Mr. Chairman, if I may address Mr. Neely's question, I have before me the, I did. The Vaness traffic report and the traffic TIR threshold report that Fieldstone has prepared. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure I can stand here at this very moment and give you an explanation of the discrepancy of the numbers, but I could, looking at both sets, they're very close. Both sets, the table one graph from Vaness and Associates, the traffic engineers, and then the TIR worksheet, both of them together say the same thing. The numbers are a little bit off. Both of them together say the same thing. There's no traffic generated from this facility. Very little, certainly very little at peak hours. And as Vanessa said, quote, not likely to be noticed by drivers along Buck Meadow Road. So I can't specify the exact numbers, how each set of engineers came up with those, but together they read there's very little traffic impact with this proposal.
Attorney Perlman, I'm not looking at my packet, but did one of those predate the reduction in the square footage of the storage units when you went from 6 buildings to 4?
No, the TR actually came into me this afternoon, and the Vaness memo is dated August 5th, so no.
Okay.
They both came after the reduction that Chad and his team went through with the Conservation Commission. Having said that, I don't know if you have copies of the letter from Carla Williams dated August 4th, 2026.
We do.
Okay, you can see in there, it's the letter speaks for itself, but Randy Termel, a longtime realtor and broker here in Nashua, opines that there'll be no property impact to property values with this proposal, which makes sense when you look at our immediate neighbors, the city on 3 sides, a large tract for the Gagnon property, and then the school to our south. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to kind of run through the variance criteria. You have the application before you. This is a unique site in that it is, there are 2 big factors why this is a unique site. Number one, I wouldn't be here tonight. I couldn't make this argument that this is a unique site if the commercial warehouse wasn't there. If this was just a raw piece of land, I couldn't make this argument. But because this warehouse has been there for 45 years, to our knowledge, without any incident or objection from this part of Nashua, that alone makes this site unique. A chicken coop turned into a warehouse, at least for 45 years, the chicken coop going back to the 60s. We see that as a unique factor. Plus the lot itself, with very minimal frontage and the way it's kind of tucked back off of Buck Meadow into the woods, that, unlike other properties in this area, that makes a unique circumstances where we believe we can proceed with the variance application. And when I say that the warehouse has been there for 45 years, I believe that the warehouse, I think it's fair to say that the warehouse is part of the neighborhood. It's been there. I grew up in South Nashua. I would take out my parents' car without them knowing and drive on these roads, and that chicken coop was there, that warehouse was there as part of the neighborhood. We don't believe that we're contrary to public interest because we don't see any adverse impact to public health, safety, or welfare. We don't see that the proposed storage facility going from one type of warehouse to another type of warehouse is going to change the character of the neighborhood, so we don't see that we're adversely affecting the public interest with this application. Similarly, with spirit of the ordinance, the storage facility has been on the site for 45 years. I understand there's no impact and no issues with commercial use. And again, we don't see that the proposed storage facility is going to be adversely impacting public health, safety, welfare. And it will maintain the character of the neighborhood with the proposed storage facility. We see substantial justice being gained here. The owner gets a reasonable use of the property, the continuation of the use of the warehouse, the upgrades to the stormwater that Chad just mentioned. There are a lot of positives with this application. The 8,800 net improvements to the buffer, the wetland buffer, is a positive. And again, seeing that the warehouse has been there for so long, we're going to have a new type of warehouse there. We don't see any adverse impact. We see that the substantial justice factor, when you weigh the balancing test, weighs in favor of the applicant in this case. Property values, again, you have the letter from Keller Williams. The site is going to be cleaned up. There's a lot of debris on the site. We're going to be upgrading the site to a modern building. We are open to landscaping suggestions. We will have a landscaping plan working with Conservation Commission. We don't see that we're going to be adversely impacting property values, especially, again, given our neighbors. We don't see that the city or the Gagnon family is going to take a hit on their property values. And finally, with the hardship, as I mentioned, it's a unique site in that it's minimum frontage, the way the site, it's a big lot, kind of tucked back off of Buck Meadow. The warehouse that's been there for 45 years. I didn't see that there's any fair and substantial reason to prohibit the proposed warehouse. Since there's one there today, we're going to have a new one at the site. I believe we have a reasonable use for this property. We have no traffic impact, and the wetlands will be, the buffers will be improved with this proposal. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to take questions. That is our presentation. Reserve time to rebut any concerns from neighbors.
Questions from the board? Mr. Boucher.
Just to clarify, I read through a lot of the material in a lot of letters. Again, the site is not intended to be a commercial, like warehouse type of application or contractor. It's strictly focused more on long-term storage, correct?
That's correct. The site today is mostly contractors. You know, big trucks coming and going, and dirt and machinery and whatnot. This is intended to be your typical residential storage facility, storing files, storing furniture, whatnot. The units are, are going to be 5 by 10 or 10 by 10, so they're not huge. And so it's really just what you say. It's going to be for residential purposes.
And on this particular site, not that there's a lot of room, there's no intention of having any long-term storage of any type of vehicles, RVs, or anything like that outside.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Some storage facilities have that, but I just want to make sure this site doesn't have that.
Oh, no. So there's no, under contract for the storage facility says you can't store, cars in these units, you can't store dead bodies, you can't park outside, you can't store anything outside. It's just, when you see these facilities, people think, oh my God, look at the size of it, look at all the traffic that's going to come and going. If you're familiar with them, there's very little activity. They're almost kind of creepy because there's no one in these buildings, right? So, but you're right. It's really meant for homeowners with extra stuff.
Thank you.
Mr. Neely.
So reading from the original application, it says that, quote, "This project will provide a much-needed additional self-storage service to the city and its residents." I did a quick quick online search. This would be the 13th self-storage facility in Nashua. Just taking a look at the surrounding facilities, this will be the 30th in the surrounding area. Is there really a need in Nashua for a 30th, or in this area for a 30th self-storage?
Mr. Neely, one thing we did not provide you was the feasibility study that was done for this project. And I was surprised at the self-storage industry, how they come up with their demand. And the self-storage industry tells us in the southern New Hampshire, we're down by 4,000, roughly. There's a need for 4,000 storage units in the greater Nashua area within a 5-mile radius of this particular site. Now, there are a lot of storage facilities around, I acknowledge that, but they fill up. And so this, we expect, I mean, my client wouldn't be doing this unless they know this is going to fill up within a year or two. So the demand is there, and we believe this will be a successful business.
So I've got a couple more questions, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Okay, so how did we get here today? So this thing has been a warehouse since 1981, it looks like. Was it recently sold? Is that what's driving this whole thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, my client's recently purchased it in the past few months.
And part of the, and I just want to go back to unnecessary hardship, because I think that's what's going to drive this argument, is the unnecessary hardship. And you guys said strict conformity is not reasonable. That facility, I live in that area, I know it very well. It's not generating a whole lot of traffic right now. I mean, there's like nothing going in and out of there right now. It's very negligible. Is self-storage really the only option that they considered for this facility? Was it step one, let's go for self-storage type thing? Like was it just the feasibility study? Like what made your client kind of come to we want to build a self-storage in this area?
Let me answer that. Let me just,
thank you.
if you can have 1 sec.
Yeah,
All right.
thanks.
Anything else in the meantime?
So, good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Chad Brandon, civil engineer with Fieldstone Land Consultants. When the project was first evaluated, there was a conversation with city staff relative to the interpretation of warehousing. And the initial interpretation was that self-storage actually was a warehouse use, and thereby this would be a conforming use for the property. As we reviewed the project in more detail with city staff, they offered a revised interpretation that essentially stated, because we're expanding the warehouse use and because the current land use code does define warehousing and self-storage differently, that we would need to request the variance. We would consider the warehousing of contractor bay type of facility and a self-storage facility as a self-storage facility, actually, my professional opinion, is long-term, has a less likely or less impact on the surrounding areas. Because although the contractors that may be occupying that space currently may operate at a lower intensity, they certainly could be a more intense business that occupies that site by right because of the 1981 variance that was granted on the property. I say that because we tried to look at all of those conditions as part of this application. If you look at the traffic study that was prepared by Vanessa, it actually compares general warehousing to self-storage. And I think the fact, that comparison also shows that the uses are, similar and essentially, negligible impacts, moving to self-storage. So the self-storage is a business practice that my client currently has and operates in other locations. And so it was a logical, proposal for this site based on that. And it was something that it was initially discussed with city staff and has evolved through the process. But what we have done here is we started out with a proposal that was kind of utilizing more of the developable land on the site initially, and we had a much larger, proposal. And we've tried to be sensitive to a lot of the feedback that we received through the process, and we believe the plan that we have before you this evening is an improvement to what it currently exists out there. And we think it would be hard for anybody to reasonably discuss this in any other direction because of the fact that we're reducing the overall impact, square footage impact on the site, and accordingly there's a restoration of buffer. And then we're incorporating, current standard engineering practices into the design, which would be stormwater mitigation and management. And so it technically, is an improvement. And so that's kind of the rationale as to how we got here, why we're proposing, self-storage, and just some of the background as to the dialogue that we had, to date leading here. I hope that helps.
So to follow up on Mr. Neely's question, because I do think that question, it goes to the heart of it, at least for me. I agree that the building that's there now is an existing condition of the property. And certainly it's a characteristic that makes it distinct. But what is being proposed here is to demolish that building and replace it with something new. So in contemplating what could go there, has there been any thought, any look at what would it look like if in fact you developed it for residential use as is currently allowed in the ordinance for this district?
We have not looked at this at all from a residential standpoint because we feel like the warehousing use is consistent with what is being proposed, and that's what the property's been used for since 1981. So although we are looking at redeveloping the site, the proposal that we have before you, we believe, is very consistent with the current use that was approved as a variance in 1981.
Thank you. Other questions from the board? Seeing none, anything else you'd like to add?
No, thank you. Thank you for your time. We'd be happy to answer any questions, after you hear from the neighbors.
Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak in favor of the application? And I do note, as has been referenced, we do have a letter from Keller Williams asserting that the granting the variance and the special exception, would not have a negative impact on surrounding property values. We also do have a letter that was referenced from the Conservation Commission, which we will, that did provide a favorable recommendation with certain conditions, as has been referenced. So is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application? You can pull that down if you'd like.
Vertically challenged.
And by the way, thank you for closing the door earlier.
Oh, thank you. I'm Gloria McCarthy, 65 Musket Drive, Nashua. I'm a 46-year resident of Ward 5. I live about maybe a mile and a half from this, and I'm a member of the Conservation Commission. I respectfully oppose the requested use variance to permit a commercial self-storage facility at 34 Buck Meadow Road, and I ask the board to deny this application. According to the city's tax records, this property is listed and taxed as developable rural residential land, and that's how it was advertised for sale across multiple platforms. The only permits that I was able to find that were ever granted and that are listed on the assessor sheet were for electricity. The application is not a request for a minor deviation from an otherwise permitted use. It's asking the board to allow a use that is specifically prohibited in the R40 rural residential zone. The question is not whether this design can fit on this particular parcel. It's whether there is a legally sufficient reason to override the city's decision that this type of commercial use does not belong in an R40 zone. Under RSA 674:33, and Nashua's own ordinances, a variance requires a hardship arising from special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area and that the property cannot reasonably be used in compliance with the zoning ordinance. While it is certainly would be preferable to keep the area open space and added to the conservation land adjacent, there is space available to use the property as permitted in the R40 zone, much like the conservation development that was built on the Gagnon property just up the street. The property is able to be used for uses in the R40 zone. While the owner may prefer a commercial self-storage facility, or that such use may be more profitable, does not constitute unnecessary hardship. The existing gravel driveway, fencing, and other man-made improvements do not create a hardship. They are man-made, not unique physical characteristics of the land, and they can be removed or modified. The existing building described by the applicant as a warehouse/storage building is a repurposed chicken coop built in the early 60s. It has had multiple uses over time by various family members, and according to the ZBA minutes, were consistent with the agricultural use of nearby farmland, which is fundamentally different from what is now being proposed. Simply labeling both situations as storage does not make them the same use. The applicant wants to replace an approximately 18,000 square foot structure with 4 new commercial buildings totaling around 30,000 or so square feet, with individual storage units, security fencing, and a 24-hour operation. That is nearly twice the existing building area and represents a substantial change in the character of the use of the property. The proposed facility would bring new commercial pattern of traffic, lighting, security activity, and 24-hour customer access into a rural residential neighborhood. This property is surrounded by residential and environmentally sensitive resources, including the Colebrook wetlands to the north and east, conservation land to the west, and the Brian McCarthy Middle School to the south. Wetland regulations recognize these resources as fragile and specifically seek to protect water quality, wildlife habitat, and other environmental values. These circumstances do not provide a reason to weaken zoning protections. They reinforce the importance of following them. While it is being requested, what is being requested is permission to establish a substantial commercial use where the city has expressly decided that use does not belong. The city's zoning plan already provides locations where commercial self-storage can be developed. Granting this variance would bypass that plan and introduce a specifically prohibited commercial use into a zone intended to protect rural residential character. I respectfully ask the board to deny the requested variance for 34 Buck Meadow Road and uphold Nashua's zoning plan. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
My name is Sherry Dutsey. I live at 18 Swart Terrace. I chair the National Conservation Commission, and I was the lone dissenting vote of the 5 commissioners that were there that night. I am opposed to this because I would respectfully request that the board look at the broader picture rather than just this piece of land, okay? As others have said, it's in a very sensitive area. It is, I don't want to say surrounded by conservation land, but there's clearly conservation land around it. I hear the applicant talk about an improvement with stormwater management. My understanding, and looking at our conservation land, is that Mother Nature is handling the stormwater management of their property just fine. And the reason they need to improve it is because there's going to be more impervious surface. And because of the impervious surface, now we have to put in an engineered stormwater management plan. I would just like to make sure that the board understands that when the applicant references the Heritage Bureau report indicating that there are no, okay, I'm forgetting the,
Wildlife impacts?
what?
Or rare and endangered species?
Rare and endangered species, okay. That report it only states that nothing was seen there. Since this is private property, it makes sense that there would be no reports to the Heritage Bureau because nobody's been on the land. And that's what the Conservation Commission comes up with all the time. If you don't see it, it's not reported. But just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And when it's private land, that makes sense. So I just want to make sure that the zoning board, understands that. We are going from 1 building to 4 buildings. We're going from, 12 individuals using this space to, I believe, over 100. I also take issue with the applicant saying that these units are going to be for residential use only. I don't understand how they can make that commitment. I do know of people who run businesses out of these units. I have, unfortunately, a relative who runs a scrap business out of a storage unit, not in our state, but some state, other state. We do know that people have used these to build cages and, bring people to these cages and keep them bound up. I mean, that was clearly, if you haven't seen that on TV, that was an interesting thing. So he was obsessed with this woman, and he used his storage unit to build a cage, brought her to the cage, and that's where he kept her. I don't think we can act. I also have a friend who stored a car in one of these. So to say that it's just going to be furniture and a few trinkets, I'm not sure that the applicant can actually convince us of that. The last thing, I think that would be the last thing. I would just ask you, to look at the surrounding area. We have other places in Nashua. We go down Temple Street, we look at the Corvo Ruthier area, clearly a highly, highly disturbed area that was industrial. You could put storage units there, and it wouldn't have the impact that it does on this land. I also think that there are other uses for this land. I did look up a couple of special exceptions. This is not my area of expertise, so I realize that the exceptions that I have are not the ones that are referenced for the applicant, and it might make a difference. But, one of them says, the Zoning Board of Adjustment with due regard to the nature and condition of all adjacent structures and uses and the district within which the same is located. And then, they go on to say the requested use will not impair the integrity or be out of character with the district or immediate neighborhood in which it is located, nor be detrimental to the health, morals, I love that, or welfare of the residents of the city. So I'm not sure that that applies because this is 190-134. It may not. But there's another one in terms of the variances that also says, basically, again, that it's suitable to the area, and I believe, I think that was all that I wanted to say. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak?
Hello, my name is Jessica Taylor. I live at 33 Gilson Road. Despite the rectifying changes, I still find myself of the same opinion that this is not in line with the character of the community and will continue to be a burden to the surrounding wildlife. For the long-term protection of the natural pockets and quiet neighborhoods of Nashua, it is critical to recognize where this project conflicts with the R40 zoning. I do recognize that this may still pass zoning, and certainly do recognize where the revisions have been counterbalancing to the issues. However, it is the uncontrollable factors that prove that this still does not meet all the zoning requirements. As this will be a 24/7 facility, there is no controlling the amount of people coming in and out, what litter is left there or on the road as they drive to the facility, or what hazardous materials are stored there. How can you predict or change who is on the property, even if they're not on the property for its intended purpose? How can you predict the way the noise and disturbance affects those who live near the facility and the wildlife that inhibits the area? The litter alone is something I can speak to, having reached out to the Public Works earlier this year with concerns of litter on my street. Understandably, they were too busy. I think they even cited not having enough people to remediate this issue. And this is something that's the result of folks coming and going who have no other care or reason to care about the area they're traveling through. I can foresee this being the fate of Buck Meadow as well. On any other day, Buck Meadow serves purpose to students, homeowners, and others out to appreciate nature, with other business being kept to the Maplewood Business Plaza. I hope it stays this way, but I do want to emphasize to the zoning board to consider these points and insist that the contingencies stated by the Conservation Commission are enforced, and yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? We do have several letters. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Good evening. My name's Heather Shaves, and I live at 18 Twilight Drive. This facility has been a storage unit for several years. My husband used to store his Mustang there. So they would have, you'd go in the fall, you'd drop off your car, people would have boats, people would have mini RVs, and then you had to leave it there. You couldn't go in and out throughout the year. They had a day that everything had to be in, and then they had a day in the spring that everything had to get out. So everybody would come, take the risk. So the effective traffic was very small. I walk my dogs. I've lived in the Southwest Quadrant for over 20 years, and I walk my dogs the 2-mile loop, excuse me, almost every day. And I just took some pictures the other day when I was walking. There was a snake, and there was a rat, like a big rat, and like the snake had like tried to eat the rat, and the rat had like eaten its way out of the snake's mouth. So there's tons of, I've seen the bobcat down there, photos of the bobcat. There's a huge gray heron or gray blue heron that's always down there. I know that there's tons of milkweed on the private property for the endangered monarch butterflies. So it's an amazing area, and as you said, you live there, you know. So I live right near the Teak Drive thing, so you said the zoning for that it's totally out of character. I can't think of anything that would be more out of character for this area than having a storage facility. It doesn't make any sense. Anybody with common sense driving by there would realize that doesn't fit into the landscape. I have a painter who just did the inside of my house, and he stores all of his paint at a storage facility. So he, you know, all of his supplies, his ladders, his everything, he's in and out of there every single day. So there's no way to manage who's renting these. And my bigger concern is, you know, about the rodents, right? So you're gonna have the rodent boxes there, because there's rats there. I have a picture of one. So if they're eating the rats, then the owls are eating, the herons are eating the rats. So then I'm concerned about the wildlife. And more so, has anybody thought about the whole project at down behind the Wise Owl Academy, where that's going to the Supreme Court for the end of the month for the condo units that they want to put there? So if that passes and they end up being able to put the condo units there, where do you think a lot of those people are going to store all their stuff, right? So they're going to store it at the storage facility if it's there. So you can't tell me there's not going to be traffic going back and forth from the people that live in the condos to the people that have their stuff in storage. So I am opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? I am going to reference several letters. Just to note, I think as everybody appreciates, this application's been postponed several times. We have a lot of packets that have come before us, so if I miss a letter, I do apologize. But we do have a letter of opposition that came in from Stacia Mamoni, if I've said that correctly, from Flossie Hunt, from Barbara Hawkins, from Chelsea Posnick, from Patricia Paterno, from Eric Fournier, from Ms. McCarthy, who spoke this evening, Chelsea Morphus, Chelsea June, Michael Tabasco, Carol Sarno, Allison Gallipo, Katrina Sousa, Sarah Morales, and some new ones that came in today. There may be some old ones. Thank you. Names that I may have missed. Janice Arcand, Jessica Taylor spoke, Larry Nutting, Ryan Fiore, and Jennifer McGregor. Are there other letters that I have missed that came in our packets? If I did miss one, do know that it was included in our packet, and all the board members have received these letters and have had the opportunity to read them. So I'm now going to provide an opportunity for the applicant to provide any rebuttal or answer any questions that you wish. We'd love to keep you to 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Again, Andy Perlman for the record. Just a couple comments. I would note that rendering that we gave you, like the warehouse that's there today, in full foliage, it's going to be well covered, it's going to be blended in. I won't say you're not going to see this, but driving by Buck Meadow, you'll barely see this proposed facility. When, as MacArthur says, out of character of the neighborhood, you have a warehouse there today. We have a new warehouse being proposed, self-storage, and we believe that it'll be the like character for the neighborhood. Ms. Dutsey spoke. Even though Ms. Dutsey spoke, the Conservation Commission voted for a favorable recommendation. Ms. Dutsey spoke about the DES constraints, but that's how we operate. We are told to go to New Hampshire Heritage Bureau or the new Ecological Review section of DES. We ask for a response. This is the response we get. So we're checking boxes. You can't say just because we didn't see anything doesn't mean there's nothing there. This is the process we go through. We went to DES. We did everything we're supposed to do. I did not say this is going to be exclusively used by residential. My office had a self-storage facility for a while, storing all of Jerry's old files that we've got rid of. So there will be non-residential uses, but I suspect it's going to be primarily residential uses. And anyone can make the argument, why not put it over by Corvo Ruthier? Why not put it in some industrial part of town? It's not our property. This is our property that we have to work with. We believe that we have a reasonable proposal before the board tonight. Ms. Taylor said, how can you predict how people are going to use this? The Chiardelli family has been operating self-storage facilities for years in a number of towns in the area. We know how these things operate. People go during the day, people go on Saturdays, Sundays, and there's very little use after hours, very little use during our normal business hours. If it is a concern for the board, we are proposing 24/7. We could cut that back till 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. to be shut down, so there's no traffic coming and going. We could lock the gate so people couldn't get in, lock the security features if that's a concern for the board. But Mr. Chairman, we believe we have a proposal similar to what's out there today, although being brought up to current standards. We have a lot of impervious out there today that's untreated. We're making it better. And so we have the two applications before you. And we do have two applications before the board. And we believe it's appropriate that the board vote on them separately. So happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I appreciate your time.
Questions for the board?
Thank you very much.
Have a seat. As I mentioned earlier, we will provide the opportunity for one person who spoke with questions, concerns, or opposition, if you wish, to come forward and kind of have the last word. We will give you the opportunity, if you wish to do that, to confer amongst yourselves and maybe decide who you want to speak, if you want to have someone speak.
Can we take 5 minutes?
Yeah, we're going to take a 5-minute break, so that'll give you more of an opportunity.
Thank you.
It's okay, you got it.
It's an important one. I should have made it in.
It's an important one, that's true. assume so.
I couldn't quite hear.
Okay.
Okay, everybody, we'd like to get back to our meeting. I'm not sure if you've all had the opportunity to decide whether somebody wishes to come and have the last word, or if we're good. Anyone? All right, well, seeing no one, then we're going to close the public hearing and open up the deliberations of the board. Just before I get to the thoughts from the board, we can discuss this in any order we want, but I think it'd probably be prudent to take up the variance first in terms of any actions that we take, and then follow it with a special exception if necessary. So, thoughts from the board? Mr. Leno.
You know, as Mr. Neely said, there are dozens of self-storage facilities in this immediate area. And I've noted, we were just talking about my travels, in my travels, the self-storage seems to be a uniquely American thing. I don't see it anywhere else. And there's this thing called Parkinson's Law, which was initially an economist's observation. Work expands to fill the available resources. And that has many corollaries, and that's, you know, stuff expands to fill the available storage space. Computer users know that their disks fill up no matter what they want to do. I'm not really, I don't like this idea, mainly because I don't think it's the right usage for this property. I don't take into account what's there now, because what's there now is being removed and replaced with something else. And so we need to look at what the regulations are and what's being built and how that would fit in, even if it was just a blank property, an undeveloped property. And I recognize that the applicant, that's their business, that they run a whole bunch of self-storage facilities, and therefore this was the most obvious choice for them. But in the sense of what's right for this property, what's right for the neighborhood, I don't see yet another self-storage facility being right for the neighborhood. So in the case of the variance in particular, I'm having a really hard time with that. On the special exception, I appreciate that they're going to be making some improvements, but any disturbance, I think, to the wetlands area, even if at the end product will, somehow be an improvement, and the essentially unanimous objection of the neighbors, we have not seen any of the neighbors say, yes, I want a self-storage unit there, makes me unlikely to vote in favor of this. But I definitely would like to hear what my colleagues have to say.
Other thoughts from the board? Mr. Neely?
So, I do, as I noted earlier, I live in this general area. I'm probably by this facility 3 to 4 times a week. In the 9 years I live in this area, I've not seen any movement in there ever. So actually, it was very interesting for me to hear that testimony today, that basically if folks were using it, they were said, drop your boat off by September 1st, come pick it up, April 1st or whatever. When I look at this place, I know it's called a warehouse. It's a contractor warehouse. It's set up as a contractor facility. So I got to tell you, when I got the original packet, I had quite a bit of pause over the amount of wetlands that were going to be permanently affected. I had just a massive amount of heartburn with the square footage of the wetland buffer. And I've been pretty clear on my votes over the last couple of years. You have to have a very high standard to get by me, to have me vote in favor for wetlands to be affected. So it was interesting to hear the testimony change tonight that no wetlands are being affected. But I guess I was a little confused because there was some back and forth about maybe there's still 1,000 feet, maybe there's not. I mean, that's basically a football field long, 10 feet wide at 1,000 feet. And there, there was a bunch of numbers going back and forth about the wetland buffer. At the end of the day, is it going to end up as still 17,000 feet, 8809 to the positive, just a ton of numbers floating around. And I heard some interesting testimony tonight with somebody saying, and I figured who said it, Mother Nature's doing a good job over there, leave it alone, type thing. So I had some heartburn about that, but definitely the testimony tonight from the applicant moved me in the right direction on that. However, I want to look at this from a different direction. We had in our packet, and what we heard from testimony today was that this started out in the R40 zone as a chicken coop in 1960 whatever. I think the dates changed a little bit. And then in 1981, and we've seen this a couple places in the city, they said, hey, chicken coop, not using it anymore, changed a little bit from rural, let's make it into a storage place or whatever we got to do. That area was so different in 1981 than it is today. So if this application came to me in 1981 and that thing was sitting out there by itself, I probably would go for it because there'd be so much land around it. However, there's a couple things that affect my thought process at this point. Buck Meadow Road has changed dramatically in the last 6 years. There is a small development, Cold Brook Road, 5 or 6 houses that took over a farm that was up in that area. And when that happened, I remember watching the planning board, and the city, instead of having the developer put sidewalks on Buck Meadow, took payment in lieu of sidewalks, which at that point, who cares? It was kind of a road kind of by itself, lightly traveled. Fast forward a couple of years now, and all of a sudden we have the school here. So that's the front entrance to the school. And I'll be honest with you, when that school gets out, it's like somebody kicked a beehive. There is kids flying everywhere down that road on bikes, scooters, cars going in and out. Those in the neighborhood have told us many times coming up here that they were concerned about the traffic in that area. And it has increased dramatically, both in the afternoon and in the morning. I don't think Buck Meadow, when you go to the south, can support any additional traffic. There are no sidewalks. It is tight. Someone could potentially be hit on that road. And when you think of the folks that are going into a self-storage, they're not driving small cars to go there. They're driving SUVs. They're renting U-Haul trucks. They're pulling trailers. I have the luxury, or my office is located directly adjacent to a self-storage facility, so I get to watch this every day. And folks, when they're working in and out of a self-storage facility, while they may be have no malice, they're driving vehicles that are what they're not used to. They're big, they're bulky, they're trying to maneuver them around, and their stuff is getting thrown on the ground. Like it or not, a 24-hour facility is going to have a bunch of litter. This is not a facility that's going to be staffed per the application. So you are going to have some stuff going to the wetlands. That's not a huge thing to me. Really what it comes down to is I don't think the infrastructure of Buck Meadow can handle this because it directly comes out next to the school. And when I look at, and I'll start with the variance, I will not be in good conscience be able to say that the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. I can't answer that to the applicant's favor. And the second one, the spirit of the ordinance would not be observed in my thought process. I just don't know how to get around them. But really, when I look at the special exception, I look down here, number 2 on special exception, the requested use will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. I do think it will. Going to the south on Buck Meadow, there is no room on the shoulders for people to move around. And the fifth one, the requested use will not impair the integrity or be out of character with the district or immediate neighborhood. So I get this facility made sense, or what is there now made sense in 1981, but this is a change of use. There is a difference between a contractor warehouse where there's very, very minimal movement and something where we're going to have at least 44 cars a day going in and out of there. That's 44 cars a day that aren't going there now. So we're adding that into a road that absorbed all of the school traffic. It absorbed the buses. And quite frankly, it is a different world out there with the children on these scooters. They are everywhere. You guys know it, going in and out of sidewalks and in and out of cars. I really have safety concerns about this facility, so I cannot vote for either in favor of the special exception or the variance in good conscience.
I don't mind weighing in. I think for me, I can get there on the special exception. I initially was very concerned, but I think the net positive impact in terms of the buffer requirements and the fact that there's no direct wetland impact does get me past that hurdle. I hear Mr. Neely's comments. I don't work across from a self-storage facility. There are a few that I pass pretty regularly, and just in my experience, they're very low traffic generators overall. A residential development on this property would probably generate more traffic, and they're entitled to some use. But that said, I guess there are really two criteria that on the variance that I am having a very hard time getting past. The first really is both goes to spirit of the ordinance. Bottom line is this consistent with the neighborhood character? Granted, there is this chicken coop converted to storage there now, and I think in looking back at the application that came to the board, in 1981, they have an existing building, they want to put it to reasonable use. So I can see that. I can see somebody coming in and saying, I have this existing building, I need to use it for some use. Chicken farming is no longer viable in Nashua. I can get that. People are entitled to a reasonable use. But what's being proposed here is for this building to be demolished. So you've got a blank slate. If you're going to demolish this building, is it then reasonable to say that it's not reasonable to apply the current residential zoning of the district to the property? And I guess that's where I can't get, because it seems to me, in just eyeballing it, looking at the density, you could. You could put a residential use on this property. If I were to hear compelling arguments as to why that's not so, why this property can't be used in the way that it's zoned, I might feel differently. Sometimes we see, proposals to deviate from the existing zoning, and what we find is that the way the development has occurred in the surrounding area isn't consistent with the existing zoning. The character of the area has changed, therefore, it's not reasonable to use the property in the way that it's zoned, or at least some deviation is necessary. And I don't see that as being the case here. So I guess that's really where, I come to as, I don't think you can meet the hardship criteria given the premise that the building is going to be demolished. I don't see anything about the characteristics of this property that says you can't develop it in a way that's consistent with the current, R40 zoning. And I don't see that it's consistent with the character of the area. I can't get there. I do think, I struggled a little bit with character because there is, a lot of variation here. We do have a budding property that's conservation land. We do have a middle school, a large non-residential facility immediately next door. So I am not going to go so far as to say the character of this area is residential. There's commercial uses right down the street as well. But I don't see how this proposed storage facility is consistent with the character that exists given the mix of uses that's in that area. So for that reason, I can't get there. Any other thoughts from the board? Mr. Patry?
Yeah, like Mr. Mankara, I would echo your views on the unnecessary hardship element of the zoning. I do think that applying the ordinance here is reasonable, and I just can't see how this use would be necessary.
Other thoughts?
I struggle with the variance in a way that I can make an argument for how this can be, and I understand the arguments on the character because you're removing the facility, but I'm also looking at it from the holistic, from what it was to what it is now, to what it's being proposed, and if this site if there was an improvement to the current facility and marketed in a way, there could be just as much or more activity on that site if it was more conducive to, let's say, that contractor type stuff. So I can see both arguments for, I can see the arguments for the issues with the impact, what's going on the street, but, and like we've seen in other parts of the city, I didn't grow up here, but I've spent most of my life here. A lot of areas have changed dramatically, right? So change is inevitable, and I'm not saying that to the detriment of the environment. I'm just saying that putting that school in, as Mr. Neely said, was like a game changer in that neighborhood. So I live near Bishop Gurdon High School, okay? Don't even step in the street when school's getting out, because you'll get run over, okay, by parents. Okay, so it's, I think that's typical of any school, and I'm not saying that in a negative way, I'm just saying people want to get in and get out, and the frustration of getting jammed up, and and people have to go places, kids have to go places. So I think that the nature now is completely different than what it was before. So what I'm saying is that I guess I could make an argument for this facility, and the fact, and I understand, we had, I also put a lot of value in the fact that we have a civil engineer here. Obviously he's working for the applicant, but the civil engineer here is not going to risk his license to say something that's not true, right? So his professionalism and his knowledge, to me, goes a long way in what he presented. So I could see a reason to support the variance, and that'll be all I'll have to say for now. Thank you.
Any other thoughts? Shall I take a stab at a motion? Unless somebody else wants to take it.
You can take it.
Okay. Thank you. So, lacking, I guess what I don't have before me, if I can find the case, is all of the different numbers. Now I need to find my agenda.
The agenda has the wrong numbers.
I know it does. So I'm not going to have the right numbers in front of me, I guess, when I make the motion, if I can find my agenda. So,
Does it make sense just use the numbers in the agenda and then say as amended by the?
I think that's the way. Yeah, I
testimony?
think that's the way I'm going to do it. So I'd like to make a motion that the application of Salt Creek Properties LLC and Cutter Place Properties LLC, McMilford Realty LLC, at 34 Buck Meadow Road, requesting a use variance from Land Use Code Section 190-15, Table 15-1, number 193, to allow self-storage facility in the R40 zone be denied. We find that granting the variance would be contrary to the public interest because the proposed use would be inconsistent with the character of the area, and because concerns been expressed, particularly related to traffic and the proximity to the middle school, that it could be injurious to public health, mainly through impacts to public safety. We find that the spirit of the ordinance would not be observed for the same reasons, and because, of course, pretty clearly the spirit of the ordinance, the intent of the ordinance in this district is to provide for low-density residential development. We find that granting the variance may do substantial justice for the owner seeking it in allowing a more intensive use of the property, but not necessarily outweigh the adverse impacts to the public. We do have a letter from a professional realtor indicating that the values of surrounding properties would not be diminished, and we have no evidence to the contrary. And we find that there would not be an unnecessary hardship to the applicant because, although there are special conditions of the property to some extent in that there's an existing building on the property that is certainly part of the real estate, the proposal is to demolish that building and replace it with a new use. So that is not a special condition that would make it unreasonable to apply the requirements of the ordinance to this property. So in this case, there is a fair and substantial relationship between the general purpose of this ordinance and its application to this property. So we don't find that a hardship is present. So for those reasons, I move that the variance application be denied. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Neely. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion to deny the variance? All those opposed to the motion? Opposed by Mr. Boucher. The motion to deny the variance carries. Given that the variance application has been denied, do we feel the need to act on the special exception application?
Well, I mean, theoretically, they could appeal the denial, and therefore, it would probably be appropriate to vote on the special exception. And I see Mr. Durfee is nodding his head in agreement.
So given that, if I were to make a motion on the special exception, my motion would be to approve, but that could, of course, go down. But I guess I'm just going to throw it open because I'm not sure where the sense of the board is as to whether we find, is there a consensus around whether we would feel we would grant the special exception or not? I'm pretty sure, Mr. Neely, you are in the negative.
I'm in the negative.
Mr. Patry?
I tend to agree with Mr. Neely.
And I think I would too.
All right, then, would someone like to make a motion? Given, I didn't ask you just because I know it's 3 votes, so, would somebody like to make a motion on the special exception?
Yeah,
Mr. Neely?
So I'd like to make a motion to deny the special exception for Salt Creek Properties LLC and Cutter Place Properties LLC owners, Mac Milford Realty LLC, in care of Andrew Ciardelli, applicant, 34 Beck Meadow Road, Sheet C, Lot 350, requesting the following, what do we got here for variance? Excuse me, for a special exception. A special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-115 to work on a 40-foot wetland to permanently impact, and we're going to go with the original numbers, 1,124 square feet of wetlands and 45,889 square feet of wetland buffer to construct a 39,700 square foot self-storage facility consisting of 6 buildings along with associated site improvements. This is in the R40 zone in Ward 5. Once again, please note that these were not the final numbers, but we did not have a chance to write down what the final numbers were, but we did not find them to, the final numbers would affect our final votes on the special exception. The requested use is listed as a special exception in the use matrix 190-15, table 15-1. The requested use will create undue traffic congestion potentially, but we're more concerned about the unduly impairment of pedestrian safety, specifically on Buck Meadow Road, which is in front of the facility. The requested use will not overload any public water, drainage, or sewer system. But as to municipal system, if we were to talk about the road, there are concerns that it will overload Buck Meadow, specifically going south, to such an extent that the requested use or any developed use in the immediate area or any other area of the city will be unduly subjected to hazards affecting the health, safety, or general welfare. Once again, this is about health and safety of pedestrians and the school traffic specifically in this area, as the school was added in the last couple of years, and the entrance to this facility directly abuts the main entrance and exit of the school. Any special regulations for this use set forth in this article are fulfilled. We do have a wetlands application that was provided tonight, and the requested use will impair the integrity or be out of character with the district or immediate neighborhood in which is located, and could be considered detrimental to the health, morals, or welfare of the residents of the city. Once again, this comes down to traffic, specifically in regards to what's in front of the facility. So any of the improvements to the facility and working in the wetlands, we said via the variance do take a backseat to the safety concerns and traffic congestion and pedestrian safety in this area. So for those reasons, I make a motion to deny the special exception.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Lionel. Is there any discussion? I'll just note one point of discussion that I'm going to contradict myself, so as not to contradict myself, but in looking at the special regulations specifically for wetland buffer impacts, I do feel that those have been addressed. But in looking at the criteria for the special exception, in particular, that the use requested is not impair the integrity, be out of character of the neighborhood, I do feel that the proposed use would be out of character with the neighborhood, and for those reasons, I am going to support the motion. Any other discussion? Mr. Patry?
The motion I think, Mr. Neal, you said could be detrimental. I think we'd want to make it definite and say would be, to make that a more clear finding.
So yes, thank you for that, and I will make that change as noted.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to deny the special exception? All those opposed to the motion? Mr. Boucher opposed. So both the variance application and the special exception application have been denied.
Thank you very
As
much.
you're aware, I didn't make this announcement earlier, but there is a 30-day window of appeal, so anybody wishing to file a motion for reconsideration within 30 days can do that.
Do we want to take another 2 minutes to let folks filter out? Okay.
We'll just give people a couple minutes to let them. Yes, you are making your point again and again, and you don't even know it. Dig through, where is this? Send your paper. Why not? This is all bug math. I just want you to know. Okay. So next, we have the application of 230 Pine Street LLC. Raphael Frega, if I said that correctly, 230 Pine Street, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-16, Table 16-3, for minimum land area, 9,016 square feet existing, 18,669 square feet required, to convert a two-family dwelling into a three-family dwelling by converting space in the attic. This is in the RB zone in Ward 6. And just to note that this application was approved on September 27th of '22, but no permit had been applied for, therefore it expired. Is the applicant present?
Good evening. Raphael Fraga, the contractor and a consultant with 230 Pine Street LLC. Appreciate you guys hearing me out today. As you stated, this property had this variance approved in September of '22. The owner then listed the property for sale and sold it as such. It was listed as a three-family. It was purchased as a three-family. The investment from my clients was decided because it was a three-family. They've paid taxes on it as a three-family unit. They have insurance on it as a three-family unit. Somebody has lived there since 2023, I'm assuming. And so the only reason that we were aware that the variance expired and that the building permit was never filed with the previous owner is because they wanted to add a fourth unit, which we now assume is not possible. So yeah, we're just hoping to have that variance reissued so that we can then go through the building department and have it all legalized. Pretty straightforward.
Excellent. Any questions from the board? Anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's all.
You're free to take a seat.
All right, thank you.
Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and open up the deliberations of the board. Thoughts from the board? Mr. Boucher.
I'm going to support the application for the same reasons I did last time. Again, the discussion was about adding that third unit, whether or not that would be a larger impact, and one of the biggest things was, again, the plan, and still the same, that it didn't add really the number of bedrooms, it was just splitting up the property, so the impact would be kind of the same as far as the number of people or the number of bedrooms, and I think that this is kind of similar to some other cases that we've heard and how we got to where we were. Again, this is unique, but again, Again, living in that area, driving that street lot, it is part of the character of the neighborhood to have multifamilies in that neighborhood. We've got large apartment buildings down to 2 families, so it all mixed in that area. So it is typical of that neighborhood, so I'm going to support the application as I did last time.
Mr. Lino?
Yeah, I also am in support of the application, and I remember this, and I went back and looked at the city GIS, and it says 3 units. So I see no reason to object to renewing the variance.
Other thoughts?
Yeah, I just add, I remember this also, I agree, and I don't think there's been any change to the character of the area that would warrant a different decision, so.
Anyone like to make a motion? Mr. Boucher?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance for 230 Pine Street, LLC owner Rafael Fraga, applicant of 230 Pine Street, sheet 101, lot 105, requesting a variance from Land Use Code, section 190-16, table 16-3 for a minimum land area of 9,016 square feet existing, 18,669 square feet required to convert a 2-family dwelling into a 3-family dwelling by converting a space in the attic. It's in the RB Zone Ward 6. It was initially approved by the ZBA on September 27th of 2022. No permit had been applied for the additional unit. Again, this was an application that was postponed from the August 25th meeting of this year. Granting the variance would not be contrary to public interest. Again, this is a request to convert to a 3-family, and that is definitely part of character of the neighborhood, as we spoke about before. The spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Again, the request is again for additional unit, and there are several multi-unit in the area. The granting the variance would do substantial justice, again, because this allows the homeowner to continue to move on with a project that was previously approved in 2022. We find that the values of the properties, we find that the values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished. Again, under unnecessary hardship, owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties, or in the area, denial of the variance would result in necessary hardship, because find that the proposed use is a reasonable one, again, because the homeowner is looking to add a 3rd unit. That's typical of what you may find in that neighborhood, and as before, there was a discussion around really the total number of bedrooms really didn't change, so the impact would be very little. So for those reasons, I make a motion to approve the area variance, to approve the variance.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Patry. Any discussion? All those in favor?
The application is granted. Good luck.
File that permit.
Yeah, I was going to say, pull that permit. Next is the application of Carolyn Russell, 9 Huey Street, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-294 to exceed maximum accessory use area, 40% permitted, 59% requested, to erect a swimming pool with a safety deck and ledge around it, totaling 20 by 32 feet. And you are here for the applicant.
I am. I'm PJ DiBernardo from Gibraltar Pools. Large yard, small house. There's a relationship between the size of the pool and the size of the house. And we're asking for a variance for that, to allow the pool.
Okay. Questions from the board?
Unless there's something you'd like to add, you're free to take a seat.
Thank you.
Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak in favor of the application? Is there anybody in the audience with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and open up the deliberations of the board. Thoughts from the board? Mr. Lino?
We see this sort of thing all the time, and as the gentleman said, it's a large lot with a small house on it, and pool is a reasonable use in that area. So I support the application.
Other thoughts? I agree. See, it's reasonable use, I'd support it as well. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll do it.
Mr. Lino?
One moment. Yes. Okay. I'd like to make a motion on behalf of Carolyn Russell, owner of 9 Huey Street, sheet 127, lot 68, requesting variance from Land Use Code Section 190-264 to exceed maximum accessory use area 40% permitted, 59% requested, to erect a swimming pool with safety deck and ledge around it, totaling 20 feet by 32 feet. This is in the RB Zone Ward 4. The board finds that granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. This pool will be in the fenced backyard of the applicant, of the owner, and really won't affect anybody else. The spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Again, the purpose of this particular ordinance is to prevent lots from being overcrowded by accessory use structures. And as we have testimony, it's a large lot with a small house, and therefore the pool will not make the lot appear to be overly crowded. Granting the variance would do substantial justice to the applicant, because having a pool is a general use in the area, and would allow them to put the pool up. We have no reason to believe that values of surrounding properties would be diminished. And as far as unnecessary hardship, the special conditions of the property are that, again, it's a large lot with a small house, and therefore putting even a modest-sized pool would bring them up over the accessory use limit, and therefore it's reasonable. There's not a fair and substantial relationship between the general public purpose of the ordinance and the specific application. So for all those reasons, I make a motion to approve the variance.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Patry. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? The variance request is granted. Good luck. Next, we have the application of Robert Champagne, trustee of the Champagne Family Revocable Trust of 2026 at 22 Conant Road, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-44 to exceed maximum height for a portion of 170-foot-long retaining wall, 6 feet permitted, between 1.5 and 9 feet proposed to the R9 zone. And I'm assuming you're here for the applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Bob Perotti. I'm an attorney here in Nashua, and I represent Mr. Champagne. I do have a handout for a supplement. What we've already filed. This is in addition to what we filed on the application. And I have, actually, let me explain what I've given you. You have my presentation, which I will refer to. It's very similar to the application. You have a 6-page, it's actually 5 pages with a cover sheet of this particular plan right here, which is a 2025 lot line relocation plan. I'm going to refer you specifically to page 3 in your packet of that plan, and very...
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, we do need you to speak into the mic.
You can grab it, right?
You can grab the microphone and,
Right.
and just pull it right out of the hole.
On the bottom here of this lot 177, on page 3 of that plan I gave you, I've highlighted You see next to that house, 231.5. And then to the right, I've highlighted 246. And I'm going to give you this plan for your deliberations so you can see it much better. But what that shows
Microphone.
is the discrepancy in elevation. It goes from 246 at the high point down to 231.5, and that's over a distance of roughly 10 feet. So quite steep elevation. We next have a photograph of the wall, because Mr. Champagne is a very good contractor, but not very good at understanding the planning board process. He had never done this before. His family owned this property at 22 Conant Road for many years. It's a single-family house on approximately 0.9 acres of land. He acquired it in inheritance, and in 2022, he subdivided the property, didn't do anything with the subdivision right away, and in 2025, readjusted that lot line between lot 299.6 and 177. Both the subdivision plan and the lot line relocation plan required the removal of, the house, existing house was on a hill, so it required the removal of that soil to get it down to the elevation. As a result of that, the lot at 177, which is to the south, immediate south, and on the back side of that wall that you saw that you constructed, that property is much higher, and that is owned by Mr. and Mrs. Lewis. And I actually have attached a letter of support from Mr. and Mrs. Lewis.
We have that.
I have the original to give to you.
Thank you.
So Mr. Champagne, when he got the planning board approval of the lot line relocation, went and constructed the retaining wall. It's an engineered retaining wall, and there is actually a handout in your packet which shows where it was proposed and where it was actually built. And that's this document right here. So it's built almost exactly where it was shown to be. So the elevation of lot 177 is the property to the south, immediately to the south, is over 246. And the base elevation of the house that it abuts that is 231.5, so it's almost 14 feet over a period of 10 feet wide. And that's what required the retaining wall. What Mr. Champagne didn't realize was that in excess of 6 feet, you needed a variance. In this particular case, because of that narrow distance, and because this retaining wall doesn't exist just as a wall, but it exists with drainage behind it, and that drainage is all located on Mr. Champagne's lot. It's not on the abutting lot. But that's why it needed to exceed that 9 feet in length, in height, excuse me, over the length of the property. And like I say, you have the actual wall, you see it. Now, he still has to get approval from the city planning department for that wall, but they're the ones that advised him that you've got to get a variance for this because you can't exceed 6 feet. So the hardship in this case is the fact that the slope is so severe, would be so severe that it would erode and cause damage. So we submit that the granting of this variance would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood nor threaten the public health, safety, or welfare in any way otherwise injure public rights. The wall is located entirely on the applicant's lot, as is the 6-foot fence that sits on top of it. No detrimental impact will arise by the granting of this variance. The spirit of the ordinance is to promote health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the inhabitants of the city of Nashua by securing safety from fire, panic, and other dangers, providing adequate areas between buildings and various rights-of-ways, preventing the overcrowding of land, avoiding undue concentration of population, facilitating the adequate provision of transportation, water, sewage, school, parks, and other public requirements. Granting of this requested variance would not be contrary to the spirit of the ordinance. The applicant's proposal to exceed wall height does not violate any of those purposes. Substantial justice would be done. There is no harm to the general public by the granting of this variance, so the benefit to the applicant is not outweighed by any harm to the public. The retaining wall, again, is entirely on the applicant's lot, as is the fence on the top. There will be no diminution of value to the surrounding properties. Surrounding properties values will be increased by the granting of this variance, as the property is going to be improved by the addition of 3 houses. And I'll note there, I believe the neighbors in their letter said that they believe this would increase their property values. Special conditions exist. As a result of the subdivision, the elevations of the newly created lots are lower than before the subdivision. Lot C-28, 26 Connet Road, which is to the south of the subject lot, is now significantly higher in elevation than the applicant's lot, resulting in a steep slope down from the common boundary to the new grade of the yard at 22 Connet Road. In order to avoid erosion and compromising the upland, as well as protecting the new home to be built at 22 Connet Road, a retaining wall was called for in the plans. The retaining wall needed in parts to exceed 6 feet in height, and it actually exists as you see. There is no fair and substantial relationship between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application provision to this property, because the limitation at 6 feet in height for retaining wall in this location is not fair and substantial relationship between the general public purpose of the ordinance and the specific application applied to here results in an unfairness. The wall as constructed is needed due to the steepness of the grade of the land over a very short distance. The proposed use is a reasonable use under these circumstances. And again, the letter of the immediate abutter is attached, and they believe it will be an asset to the neighborhood.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Mr. Neely?
So I drive by this every day, so I've watched with fascination as this whole project has occurred. What is the max, after you do your final fill-in, what is the max height of this wall going to be?
About 9 feet.
Okay. And
For the middle section, and then you see it steps down.
yeah, I gotta, yeah.
9 feet.
It's okay, all right,
9
thank you,
feet.
got it, thank you.
9 feet, and it exists.
Yeah, oh yeah, right, we're certainly looking at the picture right now. So, I guess one last question I have for you, and feel free to ask Mr. Champagne the same question. Just out of from my own curiosity, when I look at the back of the property and I'm watching this erosion happening underneath the Connex boxes there, like, are those going away soon? You bringing all that down too?
All the contents of the house that got demolished, all my parents' furniture and stuff, is in those Connex boxes. And with the limited space and the amount of excavation that we had to do, I put everything in there, and now as soon as the house is closed, the house that I'm building now will be closed in, I can take the Connex boxes down, unload everything into the house, and then the rest of that fill will come down, and it'll look a lot better, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's actually shown on the grading.
Okay, thank you.
It's going to be graded, yes.
Mr. Lionel?
Yeah, I noticed reviewing the manufacturer's installation instructions, it talked about using a geogrid to anchor the stones to the soil. You've done that?
Yes, I have pictures throughout the construction I don't know if you provided them, but.
Yeah, I looked at some of them, but I couldn't quite spot it, so wasn't sure what I was looking for, but okay, you are using that.
If you look at certain heights, you can see, in the pictures, we backed it up with a drainage system in stone, and then we laid the geogrid on, and so everything gets compacted, and then the next block goes on, and it all walks
Yep.
together.
Okay, great, thanks.
I want to emphasize that the granting of this variance doesn't mean that that wall's approved. He has to still get it approved by the building department.
This was really more from my curiosity than anything
And I will
related
say
to
for the building
variance.
department, though, he has had an engineer examine it and says it looks fine to them. But he still has to get that squared away
Yep,
with the city.
okay.
Right. Other questions from the board?
Thank you.
Seeing none, you're free to take a seat. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anybody in the audience with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application? I will note that, as was referenced, we do have a letter from Frederick and Mary Lewis from 26 Conant Road, and just, I might as well read it into the record, we're the owners and reside at 26 Conant Road, Nashua, New Hampshire. We are immediate butters to the south of Mr. Champagne at 22 Conant Road. We have resided at 26 Conant Road for over 30 years and value Mr. Champagne as our neighbor. We're strongly in support of granting the variance that Mr. Champagne seeks in order to allow for the retaining wall in excess of 6 feet with varying heights up to 9 feet as presently constructed. Our lot and home are elevated above 22 Conant Road, and the steep topography from our land down to where Mr. Champagne intends to build houses requires such a wall. The 6-foot-high fence near our common boundary line with 22 Conant Road provides for both safety and privacy for us. We believe that the retaining wall and fence as built are an asset to us and to our neighborhood, and results in an increase in the value of our property and that of our neighbors. Thank you for your kind attention. Frederick Lewis and Mary Lewis. All right. So if there's no additional testimony, I'm going to close the public hearing, open deliberations of the board. Thoughts from the board? Mr. Neely.
So I, like I said, I've been watching this project for a long time. I don't think that he could do this project without this retaining wall. And I get it, it's after the fact, but if he had come ahead of time, I don't know what kind of presentation he could have done that we wouldn't have also said, yeah, you need to do a retaining wall. I mean, this is a heavy-duty retaining wall. Plus, there's a 6-foot fence on top of that, and we have the testimony of the most affected neighbor directly behind that fence saying, you know, we're in favor. So for those reasons, and I get that, you know, he didn't understand all the zoning and all that type of stuff. That's fine. But as far as we're concerned here, I don't think there's another way. So I am in favor of this application.
Mr. Boucher.
I'm going to support the application also. I think, again, there's different reasons why we hold the heights, and one reason is, again, it's the grudge factor, you know, especially with fences and stuff, and, you know, walls are always sometimes proposed. But again, this is specifically to hold back a property elevation issue with a property nearby that's higher. So again, I think that has a lot of, you know, that's valid. And again, we do have a plan in front of us with a house that's going to be situated there. So if anybody even had a problem with the visual effect, it's going to be pretty much the 9-foot area is going to be blocked by the house. So there will be no really visual effect from the street. But again, driving by, I occasionally drive by, I think the wall looks pretty good. So it's not something that was just thrown together with big cement blocks and just thrown in the hill. So I will hope that if this passes tonight, that everything will be, you know, past the engineering of the city. But I think it gave us a good idea. Sometimes we don't have an idea what it's going to look like, but definitely we know exactly what it's going to look like. So I'm going to support the application.
Other thoughts? Anybody want to make a motion? Oh, Mr. Patry.
Unless you want
No, go right ahead, sir.
You can do the next one.
All right. I move that we approve the application of Robert W. Champagne, trustee of the Champagne Family Revocable Trust of 2026, owner of 22 Conant Road, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-44 to exceed maximum height for a portion of a 170-foot long retaining wall, 6 feet permitted, between 1.5 to 9 feet proposed and constructed. We find that granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest because the wall does not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or threaten the public health, safety, or welfare. There will be no detrimental impact from the granting of the variance. The proposed use will observe the spirit of the ordinance because the wall allows protects the safety of the applicant's property and of the overall stability of the neighborhood. The wall has no negative impact on public safety. We find that granting the ordinance would do substantial justice because there's no harm to the public by granting the ordinance, and the neighborhood benefits from the safety construction of the wall. We find that values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished. If anything, they're likely to be improved by the presence of the wall. We find that owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish from other properties in the area, denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship because there is no fair and substantial relationship between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision of property because of the grade of the property and the need of the wall to avoid erosion, compromising upland. And we find that the proposed use is reasonable because it protects the overall integrity of the property. So for those reasons, I move that we grant the variance.
Seconded by Mr. Boucher. Any discussion? All those in favor? Variance request is granted. Good luck. Hopefully we'll see those homes built. All right. Next we have the,
Mr. Boucher, I did love the grudge factor. I'm going to start using that.
Yeah.
so next we have, and last, we have the application of Dream Homes Corp., owner Cronin, Bisson, and Zielinski, applicants, 93 East Hollis Street, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-15, Table 15-1, number 45, to sell automobiles in conjunction with an existing auto repair and service facility. It's in the RC zone in Ward 7. I am going to note that, and I think you all may recall, in the application, the applicant has asserted that a variance initially, first, that a variance is not necessary, but rather, to paraphrase, essentially, this is an extension of the existing non-conforming use. Given that the application has made that assertion, I think it'd be prudent for us to decide whether or not a variance is necessary before we get into the variance application. So I thought we would provide a brief opportunity to allow the applicant to address specifically that issue. And I may put Mr. Durfee on the spot and ask him if he wishes to provide any opinions to that fact. If not, that's okay. And then we can have a deliberation on that and make a decision to move forward, if that's okay with you.
That's fine, thank you. So my name is John Bisson. I'm from Cronin, Bisson, and Zielinski. The applicant is Dream Homes Corp. Mr. John Marino is the principal of the corporation that owns the property. To your point, Mr. Minkara, this property, as all of you who live in Nashua probably know, has been used in its current state since the 40s. It has been an auto repair shop for decades before zoning even existed in Nashua. And so just initially, the thought was that consistent with auto repair, some amount of auto sales is kind of traditional, and there was no zoning when this application, when this use went into the zone in the first place. So we thought it was worthy of bringing that issue to your attention for your consideration. Obviously, if you prefer, we can deal with the variance request.
Thank you. So I don't know if you have any input you wish to make on that topic?
I'd be happy to. So I think the simple fact of the matter is that we have in our use table auto repair and service as a specific use, and we also have auto sales as a specific use. And while there may be some hand-in-hand relationship between these two, I believe there is a threshold, a Department of Motor Vehicles threshold where, if a car is abandoned and can be sold, I believe you're allowed 2 in a calendar year before you have to apply for that specific license. And I don't believe that would basically be functioning as almost like an accessory use, and that would be fine. However, I would imagine your client seeks to sell more than 2 cars in a year, hence the request, and hence the subsequent letter that comes to us from the Department of Motor Vehicles to grant the license. And again, going back to the simple fact that we have 2 specific uses for these 2, hence why we advised the variance.
Thoughts from the board? Mr. Patry?
In my mind, this is a sufficient expansion of a non-conforming use to require a variance, but I intend to support the variance, so.
I would agree. I do see them as 2 distinct uses. I think for the reasons that Mr. Durfee mentioned, I think occasional or incidental sale of an automobile on the property would be consistent within the scope of the use, but I think what's proposed here is far beyond that. So I think a variance is necessary. So I'll just make a motion that, we do find that a variance is required for the use as proposed. Seconded by Mr. Neely. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Let's proceed with the request for the variance.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate you doing that. That's very helpful. So before we get into the sort of the nitty-gritty of the variance, Mr. Marino would like to sort of just tell you what he does at his business and give you some background.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board. Thank you for your time. My name is John Marino. I'm a Nashua guy. I was born here at St. Joe's. Lived in Nashua my whole life, went to school in Nashua my whole life, graduated at Nashua High, went to college at Daniel Webster, and now I'm a small business owner. So I'm not an outsider coming in trying to, change something. The Bell family owned this property since the 40s. I purchased it from them in 2011, doing auto repair. With the elimination of the state-required auto inspection, myself and everyone I've talked to in the repair business has seen a drastic reduction in business. So in an effort to try and supplement that and stay in business, we're hoping to be able to sell some cars. Different than a big dealership that sells new ones, I feel like we have a really good reputation with auto repair, and we would be able to provide, used cars to the neighborhood that sits behind us. Working folks with vans and trucks and the need for that, and then have a place to fix it when it, comes about. So that's what we're seeking to do today. One thing I think to note too, if anyone knows the property, is it's the way it is the way I bought it, is the way it's always been. So however many cars fit on the property, that's what will fit on the property once the variance is approved, hopefully. We're not clearing an area. There's no more area to make to add more cars, so we won't be adding anything more than that's there today. Thank you for your time.
Questions from the board? I have just one. I'd always assumed that building the business, I guess, immediately to your east, it was all the same business. That's a separate business?
That's a separate business. It was a different auto repair. When I was younger, I believe it was called Rods. And now it's Lou's Exhaust, so they're a great neighbor, but they just do exhaust work.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So he's already highlighted, obviously, this property is as it has been since the 40s. You folks probably know that it comes at the congruence of multiple zones in Nashua. I think 4, the general industrial, the general business, the RB and the RC all sort of come to that point. And so it's kind of a hodgepodge of all kinds of things going on. It's rather oddly shaped, you can tell from the map. It has 3 points of access, one from East Hollis, one from Crown Street, and one from Ald Street, so it's sort of a weird thing. The property that you referred to, Mr. Mankara, is in fact owned by somebody else, and it's a different use. The uses right around it include a stoneworks company, the custom exhaust company, budget rental car, Speedway Gas, there's a church. I mean, it's a mess in terms of uses. They're all come together at that point. And so, as you've heard, the change in the law kind of is imposing a burden on this property. It's not going to survive, essentially, if some expansion of the use isn't allowed. You can't continue to just do repair there. And so rather than let it go fallow in this sort of point, Mr. Marino's desire is to sell 10 cars, whatever. As he said, he's not adding pavement. There's no more place to add pavement. If you folks have been there, all the pavement kind of spills over. There's no green, goes into the road, so there's nothing left to pave. There's no green space to take away, which I think is a unique characteristic of this property. So the variance criteria, I'm not going to belabor it. Public interest, is it consistent with the essential character of the area? It's been there since 1940. We have photos. I think you folks would be hard pressed to come up with a statement that it's not consistent with what's going on in the neighborhood. Is it consistent with the spirit of the ordinance? Repair shops, as we pointed out, there is oftentimes incidental sales with repair shops. We're not talking about a new dealership with hundreds of cars. We're talking about a few cars, used cars that he fixes and sells on the lot. Seems consistent and with the spirit of the ordinance. Substantial justice, the question is whether the gain to the public by denying this variance outweighs the loss to the applicant. I don't know what the public would gain, because you'd still have the same pavement, you'd still have the same building, everything would be the same, except that the current occupant would probably lose the ability to continue to work there. Diminution in value, we don't have a broker opinion. Nothing's going to change. It's going to look exactly the same. The footprint's not changing, the pavement's not changing, there's still going to be cars, so it doesn't seem like there's possibility for diminution in value. And finally, hardship, the special condition of the property. As I've said, it's the conflux of all of these zones coming together. This use has been there, I think, for 86 years. The pavement's been there for a long time. If we can't do this, we probably can't do anything, which I think rises to a little hardship. I don't want to belabor it. I see we're not as contentious as the first application, so hopefully you won't have a long night. Any questions? I'm happy to answer.
Questions from the board? You're free to take a seat.
Thank you.
We did receive one letter. This is from Kathy Giacomucas at 5 Crown Street. Actually, I should say Mike and Kathy, to whom it may concern. They referenced the application and state, I have no objection to the approval of Land Use Code case number 5 for Dream Homes Corp. Located at 93 Hollis Street, provided that no vehicles associated with the property are permitted to park anywhere along Crown Street. The only exception should be parking related to Infant Jesus Church on Sundays. And that is it. So we'll close the public hearing and open up the deliberations of the board. Thoughts from the board? Mr. Boucher.
I'm going to support the application. I think it's a reasonable use of the property. And again, if you look at not just the immediate, but like the corridor, so from Main Street down to the Hudson line, there is already existing a couple of dealerships towards the river. And going the other way, where National Tire moved to, that used to be a small dealership where they sold cars. And then, dating myself years and years ago, there used to be a Ford or Mercury dealer right on Main Street, right on East Hollis Street there, right? Up a little further towards Main Street. So there's a history of this, and again, as noted, there's all kinds of businesses there. So we wouldn't necessarily, you wouldn't drive down there and think that, oh, that's in a different zone, or I think it's just kind of what the character of that small corridor from Main Street down to the Hudson line is. So I think it's a reasonable use, and again, no changes to the property. So I'm going to support the application.
Other thoughts from the board? Mr. Neely?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, the hardship discussion. We're all certainly aware of the change to state law, and you kind of talk about it and folks are like, they're not affected, but so we're actually seeing a real world effect here to a potential business being negatively affected and potentially closing their doors. And as a small business owner, I'm very sensitive to that. So I think this is the classic definition of hardship here. And as Mr. Boucher said, it's going to fit right into the character. I mean, you literally have a car rental right across the street. You can't be any more closer than what this is with cars sitting in the parking lot. So I'm in favor.
I agree, and I think in looking at the hardship, as noted, the confluence of all these different zones and the hodgepodge of different uses, but, really make applying the RC requirements to this property unreasonable.
Right. Yeah, I mean, driving by, you'd think that you could sell cars there already, like.
Right.
Like-
Right. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll do it. All right.
I'd like to make a motion that the application of Dream Homes Corp., Cronin, Bisson, and Zelinski, applicant at 93 East Hollis Street, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-15, Table 15-1, Number 45, to sell automobiles in conjunction with an existing auto repair and service facility, be approved. We find that granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest because the proposed use would be consistent with the uses that are surrounding in the area and the use that's currently on the property, and that it wouldn't be injurious to public health, safety, or welfare. We find that the spirit of the ordinance would be observed, for the same reasons, and although ordinarily the intent of the ordinance is to allow residential uses, urban residential uses in this area, given that the property's been used for so long for non-residential uses, it is consistent with the spirit. Granting the variance would do substantial justice. It would allow the owner a reasonable use of the property, in particular given the changes in state law that were noted. We have no evidence that there'd be a diminution of surrounding property values. There's really not a substantial change in many ways to how it would impact surrounding property values. And we do find that denying the variance would result in an unnecessary hardship. The special conditions, in this case, being the confluence of different zoning districts that exist, the overall size and condition of the property as it is now. It's clearly a non-residential use, and the variety of different uses that surround it. Given those conditions, there is no fair and substantial relationship between the requirements of the ordinance and its application to this specific property. So for those reasons, I move that the variance be granted. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Lionel. Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor? Your application is granted. Good luck.
I'm sure the cars will be competitively priced.
Have a good night.
All right, next agenda. Anybody see?
I don't think we had it in our packet, so.
Yeah,
Oh, it was emailed. Everybody saw it. It was emailed to us.
Yeah, and I did see it, read it.
I saw it, yeah.
And I saw no regional impact.
Agreed.
I agree. I do have to note, I am not going to be able to attend. I've got a conflicting hearing. Always seems to happen when we move to a Wednesday.
to Wednesday?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I won't be here. Hopefully we'll have a quorum. Looks like a light agenda. Minutes. It's from the last meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes from August 11th?
Yes.
Yes.
Any comments or changes?
I'm going to abstain on the vote on this one, as I was not here.
That makes sense.
I didn't have any of this.
I did not notice any issues.
I did not either. It looked fine to me. So, anybody make a motion on the minutes?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes of August 11th.
As presented. Second. Second by Mr. Patry. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any other business to come before us this evening?
Oh, just want to mention a couple things. Light agenda next meeting, so I thought it would be a good opportunity to do a little presentation on the new code.
Oh, right,
As
right.
I'm sure you're aware, we've been working on this for quite some time. I'm going to tailor it to kind of the base code and things that we may see variances for, and kind of how Carter helped me a lot with his research and kind of just some data points around what this board has seen, what types of variances, where they're occurring, and that has helped to advise some of our dimensional regulations that we're proposing. I won't go any further than that, but a little presentation on the code to give you some insights.
Will you have like a PowerPoint, Sam, that you could
Yes.
send us before? Because
Yeah.
I'd like to, this is really interesting, so. I'd love
I
to
will
that before.
do my best to get it to you well in advance.
Okay.
I will guarantee you will have the weekend to review it at least.
I did notice that somebody actually put a proposal before the Board of Aldermen to allow electronic signs along Main Street for the Arts Center, where we had denied that earlier. I
It was
don't
an
know what
overlay
the status
district.
of that
It wasn't
is.
specific to the Art Center. They were just the supporting party that came to present. This is not spot zoning for a single entity. I will just clarify that point.
Has anything happened with that? I mean, did it get heard, or?
It received a favorable recommendation from the Planning and Economic Development Committee. It will go to the full board for decision, which may have been tonight. I don't.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Interesting. But yes, very observant.
I mean, every time one of these comes up before us, at least I say, is get your, talk to your alderman and get them to change the ordinance. We are not rewriting the ordinance board here.
So I will make a note to include some slides on signage.
Yes.
in my presentation.
Is the, does the RECO site have a recent draft on it, if people wanted to review it ahead of time?
Not a recent draft.
Okay.
We have been working with our consultant through OneDrive, and to do that effectively, we've had to break it up into individual articles. So it's in pieces right now, and it's loaded with comments and track changes, so it's a bit of a working document, if you will. But as I've told anyone and everyone, if there's a specific section of the code, if we really want it in full, we can export it and kind of piece it together. The formatting in terms of all the section numbers reset every time you break it into new articles, so none of that makes any sense.
It's useful to know what changed.
Everything.
A lot.
Yes.
A lot.
So it's just basically a reset?
Yeah, essentially
Okay.
that.
Right.
What we have found is that the code that we're working under right now is, given its age, there have been a lot of regulatory Band-Aids, if you will, overlays, amendments, things that fix a specific problem, but they kind of go like blinders on so far in a direction that they don't realize that there were things that connected to this, that now there are contradictions and conflicts and opportunities for misinterpretation, a lot of lack of clarity. The easiest thing is to start fresh, and really pulling on the heels of the master plan, which, not that old, and it really gave us some clear direction to go in. So
Is there a map?
there is a map.
Can we look at?
There's an interactive map.
Even better.
You can leave comments. I will also send that around.
That would be awesome.
So you can look at it.
So you're thinking this will go into effect in 2027?
That's the hope, yeah.
Okay, good enough.
Okay.
It'll be fun. Yeah.
I'll have one other item to discuss. Going digital as an idea, you receive quite a bit of material. I actually have, I'm gonna follow the rules and bring my microphone with me. This is this is the cover sheet of Planning Board agenda, last meeting. You can see how we organize our case materials. These are all clickable hyperlinks. So if you wanted to see public comment, you'd click on the public comment link. If you were looking for, the supplemental materials, which is really what, is submitted by the applicant, it's a little easier to navigate than flipping through a big pile of documents, especially if it is a application that came before initially, or didn't come but was submitted months ago. Oh, bring your packet from, April with you. They're finally being heard tonight. All of this is updated. It's kept, you're not stacking old stuff on new stuff and making sure, do we actually have everything? Because we have to prepare these packets anyway. This is more of now we're just organizing it. So this is one thought, and then to build on that, to go fully digital, if that was an option, you would obviously be able to use your own laptops if you'd like. I am having exploratory conversations with IT about having iPads that we would load up, get all the cases on a browser tab for you, and they say, here you go, here's your iPad for the meeting, if that is of interest. We would obviously still offer paper packets. I'll also add that it is fairly costly to mail these large packets. And I understand
yeah.
there have been some significant delays in the receipt of the materials, which obviously they're online, but, you know, we haven't really been organizing them yet. So I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on this. So again, on closing the paper packet, we would still provide it to you on request. We would just ask that you come pick it up.
I like the idea, and certainly I could bring my own iPad. That would, in some ways, be a little handier than trying to flip back and forth between all these pieces of paper and with the diagrams that are hard to read without expanding them and all that. So, yeah.
And I would be looking for the city to provide the device, only because I own a very small iPad, but my job requires, I have a work laptop, but I cannot use it for my personal use, because I spend my whole day on the thing. So I would just be looking for the device. I don't want to have to purchase a device.
Certainly.
Yeah, so, but, you know, I think it's just a natural progression. So I would be in favor of that.
I did send an email to you all during this meeting with a link to that planning board agenda, so you can open it up, you can click on the links, you can kind of see, and we can certainly tailor the organization to this board's preferences. But this is just kind of a starting conversation. If you say, hey, we really love this, do this for next meeting, I'll work towards that. But I imagine, you know, in the next meeting or 2 or 3, you know, we could probably make this full transition if that's something that this board would like to pursue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to, I have my own iPad, so I just bring that.
Okay.
I'm open to trying it.
Yeah, I'm good.
I noticed
I'm
the
a
planning
follower.
board, they all have some type of device, whether it's a
Yeah.
laptop or something.
Yep.
I noticed their meetings, I don't see
Yeah.
too much paper shuffling around.
A little bit harder when you're dealing with full-size plans.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't have enough table space.
Okay.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. We're adjourned.